Yeah, I'm thinking about this is the year 2023 and auditing legal media and deposition. What that is to um, AT&T and T and Southwestern Bell and network operations, um, and what New Jersey has to do with like a compact disc and a summit meetings. Yeah, an Advantage Love 30 thing, right? About the annuity code 10, the electronic code 10, and the taxation code 10 thing, and the Vantage Love 30 thing, really about it, and somewhere in between the alignment parallel universe and the Sarbanes and Oxley financial instrument and SOX compliance, and what that is between the ERISA statute and the IRA issue, and what it really seems to be involving, whether or not the Apple iPhone SE is the distinguishable difference, and what that is in communications, that way of identifying, what seems to be the Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs thing of 2020. The year 2020 is like the big deal about the Apple iPhone SE, and when it was actually released, involving the SE, the Apple iPhone SE, and the software that's actually used is like the year 2020, and what that is to the front lines of the beachfront, and what that is to international financial management and SAN software, uh, really being the computer architecture platform and embedding and encryption, programming as well as language. And the year 2020, I see like the deal about the infinite lines of the 90-degree right angle, or the symmetrical asymmetrical factor of a pi r squared principle of like the radius, the 3.1416 times the radius squared, and the square itself representing its own formula with the pronunciation of the word square itself, of the symmetrical asymmetrical deal of the perfect 90-degree right angle of infinite lines, and ultimately gets to the infinity deal of 2020, that way of 180 degree of symmetrical asymmetrical and yet still a spherical quadrant, and still presents the issue of the extra zero or the O thing of the actual factor of like a pi r squared is actually using a radius to define the meaning of the diameter of but the formula itself, based upon its own practical application for itself, normally not even taught that way, identifying the infinite lines of the 90-degree right angle and promoting the clarity of, even the principle of like a, even Olivia Newton-John and John Travolta in Grease singing that song, and Olivia Newton-John saying you better shape up because she needs a man. Well, it's obviously, now it's like the Lincoln Continental hood ornament and the vertical rectangle, and what that is to Abraham Lincoln, and a 90-degree right angle of it being horizontal like the wide, and instead of it being better shape up thing, about the rectangle on the hood ornament, the Lincoln Continental and Abraham Lincoln, and the night vision thing about Abraham Lincoln, and the wide 90-degree being a rectangle being horizontal, and then 90-degree of the Lincoln Continental hood ornament and Abraham Lincoln, and what that is in night vision that way. Um, and what the rectangle is to like a high-rise building being a wide, you know, rectangle identifying, used to not all high-rise buildings identify themselves with a huge rectangle, the horizontal rectangle, the wide area, the wide world of sports thing, yeah, about the rectangle, identifying like, high-rise building, tower of powers and stuff like that. And used to, I mean, some did, some didn't. In any case, yeah. So it's kind of like the thing about that is my thought of like what Abraham Lincoln is to you know Lincoln in a way, and what Art Linkletter is to that factor about that, yeah. So anyway, so what Abraham Lincoln link on and link letter link on Lincoln link on and link letter Art Linkletter, yeah, yeah, the Abraham Art Linkletter connection, yeah. So anyway, so it's kind of like I was thinking about that with the prepaid postage and that within itself, and the pi r squared actually being used normally to find the actual diameter of a circle. Yet, the symmetrical, asymmetrical deal about the square would present the 90-degree right angles and the infinite lines that ultimately gets to infinity, and what that is to 2020 and perfect 1010 vision. And it seems to be, the formula of computation itself, the way it's normally used in practical application, just finding the diameter of a circle. Yet normally not even taught with like the symmetrical, asymmetrical factor of the square, just the pronunciation of you know, the two issue of like the radius squared and being asymmetrical, symmetrical, asymmetrical, and it's really not even taught that way, but really it is that within its own description. Not really taught that way, but I mean, it's kind of like, you know, naive to the fact of its own like definition and actually applied to itself that way. Yeah, so I mean, it ultimately gets to the perfect 10-10 vision of like infinity with H alone and the exponential quotients and what that is to you know, a star is born. I mean, for real, like in perfect 10-10 vision, and you know, it's kind of like thinking about that. Um, what having an incomplete pass is. I mean, you know, you got to be kidding me. I mean, really, I mean, introducing a House bill under legislation, um, potentially passing in the law, only equates to whether if being airborne is some incomplete pass of like a um, incubating some like prepaid postage of you know, prepaid postage. You know, it's like this is year 2023, okay, and really, you know, it seems to be like whether or not if AT&T and Southwestern Bell is having an issue like you know, favoritism is like, you know, some telepathic accusation or the acknowledgement, not, you know, considering that if civil rights issues in Geneva, Switzerland would only be the accusation of auditing legal media and deposition. You know, I'd called AT&T. As a matter of fact, I've called the city of Pearland, Texas. I've made considerable, even to the Federal Bureau. You know, I don't want to limit the Federal Bureau of Investigation to its acronym or some future bureau thing, or the business being 108 and Chevrolet and all that stuff about bicentennial, um, or the, you know, the intelligence or the deal about the investment and the FBI that way, or the, you know, the SSI supplemental security income and the ISS International Space Station, or you know, the intelligence opposite and the telepathic phase thing about the, you know, the Pentagon Reserve reverse thing about the MSN and the alphanumerics and in that way. Yeah, so I mean, it seems to be like really getting to the point of like supplemental security income, whether it's going to be the superstar investment or the superstar intelligence or the International Space Station, or you know what, an incomplete pass, introducing a House bill into legislation, potentially passing into law. Like I'm having an incomplete pass. I mean, is that like a Mount Olive's issue? It's the Vantage Love 30 thing about the annuity code 10 and the electronic code 10 and taxation code 10 thing of like the Audi Axis. Or it's the Carl Malden, hey, don't leave home without the Hopsing Mugu Gaipan egg whites, right? But, you know, if it's a misappropriation of allocation of only suggesting that leave the intersecting axis yoke at home, don't be accused of it being, you know, a misappropriation of allocation, or not so eccentric that it diminishes the value of on-site location. I mean, is there like a prepaid postage issue? I mean, but I already have prepaid postage, right? So it's getting to the deal about it. Like, I mean, is it the PG-13 rating? The rating. The rating. Anyway, it's, it seems to be like whether or not. um, so like I was thinking about that prepaid postage in a way of what the deal is about the the humor. Not that it has to be, but obviously, I mean, if it wasn't that, I mean, what else would it be? The thought of psychology, huh? Anyway, so like, you know, getting on back to the part about um, a hypothetical metaphor, or what political science terminology might only mean. Yeah, I've been to a summit meeting. Yeah, I've been to AA. Yeah, I've been to American Amplified. But is it absentee voting you're looking for, kind of like thing? And is it the power squared volume you're looking for, or you know, am I having an incomplete pass? I mean, I have prepaid postage, right? So anyway, yeah. So like, you know, is it the deal about the prepaid postage being introducing a House bill under legislation, potentially passing into law? I mean, you know, as far as it goes, I mean, ultimately, is it getting to whether or not if it ultimately gets to the part of Geneva, Switzerland, and the human civil rights? I mean, does it stop at a method of banking? Human civil rights. Does it become an issue of like a prepaid postage and segregation in the way of what AirBourne only might mean to international financial management and color code of like beyond the front lines of the beast, right? I mean, if it's ultimately getting to the color code of the beast and the SAN software, the acronym itself between a securities and annuities network as compared to a storage area network. If introducing a House bill into legislation, potentially passing into law, is it promoting the absolute values of like Algebra or a Buick Century in the way of only what a century would only suggest as a pi square factor, a centennial, 100 thing, or really the pi squared of the practical application, presenting the centennial as a bicentennial in the 200 year. And once again, I mean, this is the year 2023, okay? And still, it seems to be like, am I having an incomplete pass? I have prepaid postage, right? So anyway, I was kind of like thinking about that because I walked outside and okay, it's kind of like I don't know who does it, but there's like a Southwestern Bell box on there by my Centerpoint electrical utility. I don't know who put it there, and I'm still trying to decide if doing anything like really has ultimately been the thought of prepaid postage. Or, am I having an incomplete pass and auditing legal media and deposition? And is that like all spiritually telepathic about political science in a way? Or is it like getting beyond the front lines of the beach on international financial management and the SAN software, beyond the local area network, or making a grade beyond, internet protocol, seemingly whether or not if commerce dictates what's on or offshore, or what embargo and boycott really is to liquid equity in the way of like even a redundant frequency or like what I don't really like calling it consumer electronics, but I mean, if it's ultimately getting to a redundant frequency in RF, being the factor about 24, or the Apple iPhone SE, or a computer architecture platform embedded in encryption in a way of what Apple iPhone SE seems to be only to what seems to be the real deal about Barbara Walters and Hugh Downs in 2020 that way, and what that is to, Barbara Walters in the View, in the memory, I mean, it seems to be like a 1965 thing for real. And what the area code 202 in Washington, D.C., 202 being the alphanumeric like an eternal treasury of alphanumerics of 200 and 2. So, I mean, if it's ultimately getting to a method of banking, I mean, is it the accusation that the prepaid postage will only suggest whether if being amphibious beyond the J. Edgar Hoover thing about being amphibious or the airborne thing of a baptism. Yet there's the psychic warrior, yeah. The book cover, yeah. America's foremost psychic spy. And the cover up of the CIA's top secret Stargate program. The cover up, I mean, if you see the picture on the front cover of the book, Psychic Warrior, I mean, obviously it's the guy underwater. I mean, but really, I mean, the baptism. For it is written, yeah, it's like a four words, yeah. If it's the hypothetical metaphor, for it is written, a baptism, an international alphanumeric of 152, a telepathic heart, international, huh? A telepathic heart, huh? A telepathic God, a hard God, right? A Robert Esco. I mean, if it's ultimately getting whether or not if Esco is what an incomplete pass to only what maybe international law having fair use of an access easement in the form of a escrow. I mean, is it ultimately the House bill being introduced into legislation, potentially passing into law of an ERISA statute and an IRA? Or is it like practical application of principle in the way of what introduced in a House bill might only mean to only what having fair use of intellectual property only dictates whether if ESCO's on or offshore or an embargo or boycott pending, liquid equity or, what it means in international floating accounts that way of international financial management or what human capital is to human civil rights of Geneva, Switzerland. It seems to be like the big deal about even the humor of a Klondike, a Swiss Klondike bar and the hockey puck and the ice thing, and the figure eight ultimately getting to the deal about the hockey puck and the Swiss Klondike bar and what that is to the ice thing and the Bering Straits. I mean, it's ultimately getting to the Bering Straits and the humor of like a not so eccentric that diminishes the value of on-site location, or the Mount Olives thing about re-entering heaven, or the Carl Malden, don't leave home without your Audi Axis hop scene, Mugu Gaipan egg whites, or the accusation, but leave their intersecting axes and yolk thing, if it's not really a misappropriation of allocation. I mean, is it really the only thing about it's not so eccentric that it diminishes via on-site location, or is it the prepaid postage issue, huh? I mean, is it the incomplete past of an international space station? Is it really incomplete? Am I having a prepaid postage incomplete pass? I mean, is that like happening now? I mean, is it beyond introducing a House bill into legislation? I mean, is it really really at all, or is that like really just still a method of banking, or degree level of what only having fair use is to the RF redundant frequency of electronics, presenting a liquid equity grid, not making a grade beyond the internet protocol of the local area network, or defining the meaning of like Abraham Lincoln and some like hoodlum at the Lincoln Continental, or some like deal about the Lincoln and the art link letter, the link on and the link letter deal about the Aretha statue and the IRA. Are you kidding me? Yeah. Is that invisible ink or glow in the dark cold paper, or is that like my 1040 EZ? Is that what that is? Yes, my toilet paper is computer literate, comparable to scientific notation. It's amazingly, and incomplete pass, huh? Woo. International law of having fair use of access easements, normally in the form what normally is identified as intellectual property of royalties. But I mean, if it's ultimately getting to the electronic code 10 and the annuity code 10 and the taxation code 10, the code 10 thing about the Vantage Love 30 thing, yeah. And the deal about the tennis ball and the baseball, and the seemingly so deal about the ground rule double, or what that is to Mount Olives and re-entering heaven. I mean, for real, it's like seriously, don't leave home the amphibious Hopsing Mugu Gaipan egg whites, Yeah, obviously so, yeah. So anyway, yeah, so like I was thinking about that because of something about the auditing legal media and deposition, an incomplete pass. So I mean, if it's ultimately getting to like the issue of like incubating, what a fallopian tube, or the YouTube, is it the fallopian YouTube thing, huh? Is it really like what's going on? Introducing is it really an incomplete pass through the effectiveness? Does history repeat itself, huh? I mean, the word doesn't really. I mean, it's like the executive thing, right? For it is written, right? I mean, it's like religious beyond the separation between church and state of the color code between the United States codes annotating the New Testament. I mean, does that mean it's automatically airborne and like a star is born, huh? Or is it like an incomplete pass? Or what auditing legal media and deposition only suggests is whether or not have some spiritual gifted telepathic, issues like the accusation of disagreeing to whether it's like a known or acknowledged participating factor, or what community property only might dictate is maybe potentialist management is ultimately what it's obviously really always been anyway. Who can manage what, huh? I mean, it's an eternal treasury. Manage. Excuse me, but I'm having an on-star thing right now. Yeah. So it's kind of like I was thinking about that, all that programming and language still about the HTTP colon, the Austin Powers, Blue Bonnet, Imperial Eagle, and what that is to, Light Scribe and all that light year stuff about invisible programming. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm kind of gonna it's already going on like 19 minutes and 5 seconds right now, but I wanted to include that because there was like a whole lot more I was wanting to talk about, and it's kind of like a sacred words are called upon you, wise man. Go to the rising canyon where many moons fly, and you'll find a sign. Yeah. Then go to the running waters, and you'll find peace. I mean, it's like finding peace, like Zion in 1,000 Years of Peace, right? And Richard Nixon, huh? Yeah, sure. Yeah. And Grover Cleveland, the U.S. 1000 thing about human civil rights, huh? Human capital, beyond the method of banking of like local area networks, the land thing, internet protocol, going beyond methods of banking and the naivety of Deciding whether or not the internet protocol is only dictating whether or not a political equity is only an RF grid beyond the front lines of the beachfront, or embargo and boycott, on shore. Not making a grade beyond the internet protocol of like local area networks, or Abraham Lincoln, some fine upstanding hood ornament, and some wide world of sports issue of like the rectangle and identifying like high-rise tower of powers, right? Yeah. So anyway, yeah. So it seems to be like the deal between the ARC link letter and the link on, and the link letter. It's an on letter. I guess my toilet paper is computer liter comparable to scientific notation. Is that invisible ink or glow in the dark toilet paper, or is that really my 1040 easy? I mean, going beyond the waveform, projected estimates, options for. Am I still? Am I having a duration of intellectual of an incomplete pass? Am I having an incomplete pass? I mean, upon graduation, right? A star is born, yeah. Had my mailbox been a rocket, right? Yeah. Well, anyway, yeah. So anyway, there it is, right there. Yeah.